Hello everyone, this is Cherie and welcome to Shelter in Place, week 5. It's Sunday morning right now and I am taking a walk, which is something I have not really indulged in since this whole lockdown, but I figure it's really early in the morning. There will not be a lot of people out. Hopefully, we'll see. So the first thing I wanted to let you know was that I did get into my class. It's an online class at De Anza College, and it's one of 5 remaining I have until I get my film production degree. And it's kind of funny because back when I started the degree, this class wasn't a thing. And now you have to have this class. It's a requirement in order for you to get the degree. And it is beginning video production. I have to take a beginning video production course because I don't know how to make videos. And I'm very happy that this course is online right now, because the reason I couldn't take it before was because I was working and it was a 2-day-a-week class and I just couldn't take the time off to take the class. And now that we are in lockdown and they aren't holding classes on campus, they have worked it out so that people can take this class online. Woo! So screenplays I read this week. I read The Bourne Identity and I read Bridesmaids. Yes, I am going in alphabetical order in case you've noticed the last video. They were all B's. I'll give you a little review when I'm back at home so I can talk about some of the things that were in these scripts. Both screenplays I read last week were enjoyable, but I did want to share some things about each of those screenplays. The first, Bourne Identity. This was based on a novel by Robert Ludlum. This script was very odd because it seems as if it had been written in one screenwriting program and then put into a different screenwriting program, because there were all these very weird errors with the formatting. Here's one example. Interior bank reception area day. Ornate, formidable, and tech at the same time. Receptionist. Can I help you? The man standing before her, looking very out of place. And so what you notice there is that the dialogue was actually put inside the parenthetical. And parentheticals are usually used for little bits of description or ways that a character says a line. They're not for where the dialogue goes. And then underneath where it was the dialogue block, that was actually an action block. So there was something weird that happened in the transition between going from one format to the other. Another thing about this script was there were a lot of times, especially towards the end of the screenplay, where there weren't specific bits of dialogue written. There were just a bunch of X's. So here's another example. Interior Marie's car. Bourne driving. Marie looking back, seeing the professor gain on them. Marie, Bourne. And then my favorite example from this was that the screenwriter just was like, they can figure it out later because it just says this. This scene has not been written. It's a shootout. So I'm not really sure what the deal was with that screenplay. I believe I got it off a site that was letting the users download one screenplay per day for 30 days. And I don't know how that one slipped through having all those errors in it. But I just thought that was funny. So I do not recommend reading the Bourne Identity script, at least the one that I was able to read. Then our next one is Bridesmaids. If you recall that movie, it was very gross out humor, very funny. And reading the script, I realized how dialogue heavy it is. It could be a stage play. I mean, that's how heavy the dialogue was. And in general, when you're writing screenplays, you're supposed to have a nice equal balance between action and dialogue, because movies are a visual medium. So I don't necessarily recommend reading Bridesmaids to get a complete understanding of what makes a great cinematic experience. But if you just want to read some witty dialogue and just have fun, yeah, sure, go ahead, read Bridesmaids. I'm so glad the horsies are back. Let's see, I finished reading Julia Child's My Life in France. So it was really fun. It was like a little travel journal, a travel food journal. If you like that kind of stuff, I love that kind of stuff. So I would definitely recommend reading Julia Child's My Life in France. And stimulus check. Yes, I did receive my stimulus check on Wednesday morning, along with a lot of people, so that was great. Still waiting for the unemployment, though. And then for movies, I will give you the summary when I'm back at home. I made this my week of watching foreign language films. I saw 3 movies this week, and they were all foreign language films. The first was The Act of Killing. This is a documentary, and it is the first in kind of like a 2-parter to the one that I saw a few weeks ago that I told you I would talk about as soon as I saw this one. And this is The Look of Silence. So The Act of Killing interviews people who were responsible for the massacres in Indonesia in the late 1960s. And basically, the government came in and took away all the land from people who were supposedly communists, and they killed many, many communists. I'll put the number here if I can find that. But basically, it was interviewing the people who did the killing, and they were recreating a movie to show how they did those killings. And it was so bizarre because these people have no remorse. I mean, they thought they were doing the right thing by killing all these people. And so then The Act of Killing actually follows an eye doctor who goes and treats all these leaders who were responsible for the killings at the time. And at the end of each of his interview with them, he says, well, you know, my brother was one of those people who was killed. It's really interesting to see the reactions. They push the blame on other people. Oh, I wasn't the one responsible. You know, I was just doing what I was told. No one ever said they were sorry, except for 2 people, and they were both women. And one was the wife of someone that had been in charge who was dead at the time of this. And she said, you know, please forgive my husband and my family. And the other was the daughter of someone who had committed a bunch of atrocities that she wasn't really aware of. She knew stuff had happened, but she didn't know the extent of it. And she's like, please forgive my father. He's old, you know, and it doesn't reflect on me. And, you know, those were the only people who were asking for forgiveness. Everyone else thought they were justified in exterminating all these people. So I would never want to watch these again. Babette's Feast. This is a Dutch film, and it also has little bits of French because Babette, she's actually the chef that creates the feast. She's French, and so what she does is she makes this wonderful French dinner for this group of people in Denmark that she has been living with after the war, and it was her way to say thanks. And it's a beautiful story about sacrifice and artistry, and don't watch this if you're hungry. It's got wonderful food and drinks and everything, and it makes you want to have a meal, a really good meal. I love this movie. It's probably about the 5th time I've seen it. I had finally purchased it, and this is the first time I watched my copy that I purchased. So Babette's Feast, great movie. And the last one I saw was Blue is the Warmest Color. This is a 2013 film. It's French, and which is funny because the very first shot, the girl's walking towards the bus stop, and there's an actual red stop sign. And I'm like, oh, I thought that was in French. I didn't know that French had stop signs, because isn't the word for stop like arrêté or something like that? Anyway, this is an NC-17 movie. NC-17 was the new rating that was created, what was it, in the late 80s, after the X rating, because movies like Midnight Cowboy, which was a Best Picture winner, was deemed X-rated, but it got this stigma because people were associating it just basically with pornography. So they wanted to have a rating that would indicate this is a movie that it might have explicit scenes, but it's still a story with artistic merit and stuff, and so they made NC-17. This is NC-17 in the United States. In France, it's a 12 plus, which means that if you are 12 years or older, you can watch this movie. I think that's really interesting because it is really explicit. So it tells the love story between two women, and the way it is paced is wonderful. It's 3 hours, but it flows really well. You really care about the characters. The director did a great job with the tension, just building things, and then paying it off. And the cinematography, the lighting is beautiful. A lot of it's handheld. It might almost all be handheld. I just noticed it a lot, but I didn't look it up to see if the entire thing was handheld. But you're just really drawn into it, and you feel, like these characters. So I'm glad I watched it. It's a big gut punch of the movie at the end, and so I don't think I'd necessarily want to watch this one again because emotionally I don't want to go through that. But there's always Babette's Feast to watch again. So that's it for movies this week. And the movie theater marquee is advertising where you can go to get takeout since they aren't showing movies right now. And this is the saddest sight for me. It's the Cinelux all papered up. So all the windows are papered up. The last movie I saw here was The Invisible Man. And even when I went to that, I was thinking, should I be going to this? Because the virus had just started. Now this is unfortunate. Our local Baskin Robbins has been shut for a while, even before the pandemic. They always had hopeful notes up on the door, but now they are definitely closed and looking for someone to lease it. Only allowing one customer in at a time at the Verizon store. And Papa Murphy's Pizza, only allowing 2 guests in at a time. So how do you all feel about using these pads anymore, where everyone's touching their fingers on them? Or even if you use a screen pad. I just don't. They finally got all the Tesla charging stations up, but of course there are no cars now to charge. More empty Tesla charging stations. Wow. Geez, they assume a lot of people have Teslas here. I mean, they do, but then you got your poor people like me who don't even have a car. Got this one little lonely charger that's not a Tesla charger outside of Walgreens. So I guess my next question is, how do you feel about going into pharmacies right now? Do you think it's only like sick people that are going there to get things, or well, that was real interesting. The liquor store is still open. I guess that's considered an essential business. All right, so I didn't even know this place existed. I just found out about it on Nextdoor, but evidently they sell masks. Unfortunately, they're not open on Sundays, so I will come back tomorrow morning maybe, or one of the other days this week, and see if I can buy some masks and maybe some gloves as well. Now I am about to go up the hill, which is the reason that I decided to take this walk this morning, because I have not sat around so long, and even though I'm exercising at home, it's just like sitting all day. I just haven't done that for over a year, and I need to start exercising some of my other muscles. So there's this really big hill, and I'll turn it around so you can see it doesn't look too bad at the beginning, but then it gets really tough. So I'm going to be huffing and puffing, you know, up to the end when I get home. So if you watched any of my vlogs during Vlogmas, the month of December, you've seen me walk on this street a few times, but I was usually walking in the opposite direction because that's the easier way to go. I don't know what the grade of this hill is, but if I find it, I'll put it up there so you can tell. But I'm already out of breath, and I'm not even to the hard part yet. Okay, here's the corner. Once we go around the corner, that's where it gets really steep. So, what I've done in the past is, right when I get to this mark, I start counting the steps. There's usually about, I think, 1,000 till I get to start going down again. Of course, I'm talking to you, so I didn't start counting. Another thing I do to make it easier on at least part of my legs is I'll turn around and I'll start walking this way, and sometimes that will alleviate the strain. But then you got to make sure you're not stepping in anything. And I can go back around. And I think I have about 2 more minutes. Then I'll be able to walk downhill again. Here's the beautiful sand hill at the top, where some people have carved their initials. It's been like that forever. All right. So pretty if we didn't have these wires in the way. Yay, I made it. I get to walk downhill. All right, well, thank you for joining me on this week's wrap-up. I hope everyone's doing well. And if we can just hang in there, keep the virus from spreading, we'll be okay. I will see you next week for my week 6 summary of sheltering in place.